there a lot of blood?
Yeah, there was blood everywhere. There was blood spraying. I don't know, 5 or 6 stabs. I think he must have got him in the throat because we...
Horror of this story.
On 30th of July, 2008, Tim McLean was returning home to Winnipeg after working at a fair in Edmonton. He departed Edmonton on board Greyhound Bus 1170 to Winnipeg via the Yellowhead Highway through Saskatchewan. He sat at the rear, one row ahead of the toilet. At 6:55 p.m., the bus departed from a stop in Erickson, Manitoba, with a new passenger, Vince Lee. Lee, described as a tall man in his 40s, with a shaved head and sunglasses, first sat near the front of the bus, then moved to sit next to McLean after a scheduled rest stop in Brandon. McLean barely acknowledged Lee, then fell asleep against the window pane, with headphones covering his ears. According to witnesses, McLean was sleeping with his headphones on when the man sitting next to him suddenly produced a large knife and began stabbing him in the neck and chest. After the attack began, the bus driver pulled to the side of the road, and he and all the other passengers fled the vehicle. The driver and 2 other men tried to rescue McLean, but were chased away by Lee, who slashed at them from behind the locked bus doors. Lee decapitated McLean and displayed his severed head through a window to those standing outside the bus, then returned to McLean's body and began severing other parts and consuming some of McLean's flesh. Witnesses stated that this went on for a few hours. The suspect alternately paced the length of the bus and defiled the corpse. Police then saw Lee eating parts of the body. During this time, RCMP officers reportedly heard Lee say, "I have to stay on the bus forever." A few hours later, Lee tried to leave the bus by breaking through a window. The RCMP arrested Lee soon afterward. He was shot twice with a taser, handcuffed, and put in the back of a police cruiser. Parts of the victim's body, placed in plastic bags, were retrieved from the bus. His ear, nose, and tongue were found in Lee's pockets. The victim's eyes and a part of his heart were never recovered, and in spite of his vehement denial, are presumed to have been eaten by Lee. Meanwhile, the stranded passengers were taken from the scene to be interviewed at the Brandon RCMP detachment.
I was just reading a book. All of a sudden I heard a guy screaming. I turned around and the guy sitting right next beside me was standing up and stabbing another guy with a Rambo knife, pretty much. It was a big survival knife like this in the throat, repeatedly. Told everybody to get off the bus. Everybody started to get off the bus. The guy still kept stabbing him. Everybody got off the bus. Me and a trucker that had stopped and the Greyhound driver ran up to the door to maybe see if the guy was still alive or we could help or something like that. And when we all got up, we seen that the guy was cutting off the guy's head. He was cutting off the guy's head there, and then he saw us. He came back to the front of the bus, told the driver to shut the door. He pressed the button and the door shut, but it didn't shut in time, and the guy was able to get his knife out and take a swipe at us, so we backed off the door, and I ran around the backside of the bus driver took off, and then we both returned to the front to see what had happened, and he hadn't gotten off the bus. The door was still open. We shut the bus door that time and shut it. It was at that point that he came, started walking to the front of the bus, and he had the head in his hand, and he just looked at us like this and dropped it on the ground, totally calm. The 3 of us had weapons from the trucker's truck there, and we just stayed outside while he tried to get out the door, telling him, "No, stay put, stay there, don't try to come out." He tried to get the bus working. and the bus driver disabled the bus somehow in the back. I'm not sure how he did it. It was at that point I think that the police showed up and kicked us off, got us to the back, the end of the bus there.
How were people reacting?
Some people were puking, some people were crying, other people were in shock.
Were people running? Were they screaming?
Yeah, everybody was running, screaming off the bus. Like when it happened, I think I was the first one to really realize what was going on and just screamed like, "Stop the bus! Someone's getting stabbed! Everybody get the hell off!" The people at the front of the bus didn't really understand what was going on, so it almost turned into like a trample scene there, and everybody trying to get off the bus. But the guy, he didn't care at all. He wasn't concerned with anybody but the guy that he was stabbing.
What'd the guy look like? Did you get a look at him?
The killer?
Yeah.
He's either Chinese or native. That's all I can say. 6 feet, 200 pounds, wearing sunglasses, bald head. He looked totally calm. He didn't say a word, I don't think, to anybody on the bus. I think he got out and had a cigarette with one girl. Nothing, just totally calm. The guy that he stabbed was listening to his headphones and sleeping. He didn't do anything to provoke the guy. The guy just took a knife out and stabbed him. Started stabbing him like crazy and cut his head off.
Was he sitting next to him? Did it seem like they were traveling together?
Yeah, he sat right next to the guy that he killed.
Were they friends?
No, I don't think that they were at all. He didn't say anything when the guy got on the bus. I honestly don't think that the guy knew him at all. I think he was just really crazy.
So there were no words exchanged before?
Nothing.
No warning?
Nothing. No warning.
Was he saying anything during the attack?
Nothing. The guy was totally calm, and when he came and he brought the head and he looked at us and dropped the head, it was just like he was having a day at the beach. Like he couldn't be bothered by anything else.
What did you arm yourself with? You said you found something.
The trucker had a big crowbar. I grabbed a hammer. I'm not sure what the driver had. He must have had something, otherwise he wouldn't have been there. And we were all just sitting there at the door waiting for that guy to come out.
Did the victim scream? Did he wake up? Did he yell?
Yeah, the victim it was a blood-curdling scream. Like that, just reading my book, and all of a sudden I heard it. It was like something between a dog howling and a baby crying, I guess you could say. It was. I don't think it'll leave me for a while. After I don't know 5 or 6 stabs, I think he must have got him in the throat because we didn't hear him anymore.
Is there a lot of blood?
Yeah, there was blood everywhere. There was blood spurting. Yeah.
From one pool party to another, this next clip takes us to Moscow, Russia, in February of 2020, where an influencer named Ekaterina Didenko was preparing to celebrate her 29th birthday. Just a few years prior, Ekaterina had graduated from medical school, earning her the title of pharmacist. But rather than going the traditional route and pursuing a career in pharmacy, she instead chose to use her expertise to start a blog focused on creating homemade medicines in order to save her viewers trips to the pharmacy. This type of content is nothing new, and in most cases, it's highly controversial. And Ekaterina was no exception to this, with many calling her practices and advice potentially dangerous. This, however, did not stop her from amassing a following of over 1 million people, which was spread out across her Instagram page, along with other platforms. And despite her content being controversial in nature, she quickly carved out a legitimate career as an influencer by 2020, and with her birthday approaching on the 28th of February, she wanted to throw the perfect party to show off to all of her followers. Helping plan the night was Ekaterina's husband, Valentin Dedanko, who was on board to make the evening as grand as possible. And Valentin had the perfect plan, something he called a steam show. Previously, the couple had booked a venue to accommodate all their guests, with one of the most appealing amenities being its swimming pool, and using his limited knowledge of science, along with inspiration from a somewhat viral trend at the time, Valentin thought of a way to turn that ordinary pool room into something extraordinary by using dry ice to fill the entire room with steam, as dry ice combined with water creates an immediate dense fog. in turn creating his steam show. And so as the party was going on and guests were having a great time, Valentin decided to reveal the main event and brought all the partygoers into the room, giving them gowns and goggles to wear before dumping a box full of dry ice into the water. Instantly, the pool disappears within a cloud of gas, creating the incredible show that both Ekaterina and Valentine had dreamed of, with Ekaterina herself pulling out her phone to record the moment. And quickly, it became apparent that the pool wasn't just for show, as Valentin himself suddenly dives into the mist, disappearing within its hidden water.
Ёб твою налево! Что вообще происходит? Он умер! Все, его нет больше!
But there was just one problem. The chemical reaction that happens when dry ice and water connects doesn't just cause the formation of mist. It causes the formation of carbon dioxide that is produced in such a highly concentrated form that it appears as fog, meaning that the cloud we are seeing here is made entirely of straight CO2, which in such high concentration is toxic to humans, with a causing shortness of breath and eventual asphyxiation. And though Ekaterina's recording shows the group having the time of their lives, no one realized that when that dry ice was placed in the pool, it had in turn placed all of their lives in danger. Making matters worse, Valentin wanted the show to be as long-lasting as possible, and in turn order the doors to be closed in order to keep that fog inside the small room, meaning that there was very little ventilation to filter out this toxic gas, making the levels of CO2 not just very dangerous but incredibly deadly. And Valentine had just dove directly into its heart. He would break the surface just one time after this, and although the crowd cheers him on, believing he's just splashing around and having some fun, at this moment his lungs were filling with fluid, and he was suffocating to death. As below the water he was drowning, and on its surface he was suffocating. He was trapped, with the only outcome being death. Ekaterina then turns the camera on herself, revealing another man entering the water, as she's laughing and yelling in amusement, and behind her, all of her friends are seen recording the ordeal. Oblivious to the fact that Valentin was now dying at the bottom of the pool, they were far too distracted trying to get the perfect shot for their own social media pages. In the end, it truly was the spectacle that Valentin and Ekaterina had dreamed of. Shortly after the recording had ended, partygoers would finally realize that something was terribly wrong, as some began to experience shortness of breath that eventually caused them to pass out. Meanwhile, others began to feel sharp pains throughout their body that were eventually learned to be the results of chemical burns. Once the room was finally evacuated, 3 partygoers would be unaccounted for, as Natalia Manikova, Yuri Elfarov, and Valentin were left in the foggy room, dead at the bottom of the pool. What should have been the perfect day for Ekaterina had instead ended with her becoming a widow, and as off-putting as this video is, many would point to Ekaterina's behavior following the incident. As even more unusual, immediately after the incident occurred, Ekaterina would start her grieving process by posting this video for the world to see, and subsequently vlogging her experience at the hospital and documenting the death of her husband, Foreign. It was admittedly a bit bizarre, as many accused her of exploiting the death of her husband to gain internet followers, with further questions being posed as to why she hadn't considered the deadly effects of dry ice and water, as after all she was an expert in the field of science. The scrutiny towards Ekaterina became so intense at one point that Russian authorities launched an investigation into her actions, claiming that it may be possible to charge her for causing death by negligence, though to my knowledge nothing ever came of this. Just 5 whole months after the incident, Ekaterina would remarry with those initial posts documenting the death of her first husband, leading to her gaining an additional 500,000 followers. In January 2015, a group of New Zealand film students were recording outside their school at Auckland's Parnell railway station. The footage you're seeing now was recorded by a student named Chris Muir. For a few minutes, Chris and his friends were messing around and having fun as they filmed. But that's when the group spotted a man and a woman wearing creepy white masks, hiding in the tall grass next to the station and staring ominously at the camera. As it was later revealed, Chris and his buddies first thought that the masked people were probably pranksters from the school trying to creep them out, which is why they can be heard laughing throughout the footage. However, the students later confessed that it was more so nervous laughter and that they were actually pretty terrified during the encounter. Disturbingly, looking at the footage, they noticed that the couple appeared to be armed. In some of the clips, it looks like one of them is holding a pistol.
Where's the other one? Where's the other one? I don't see him.
As soon as the suspects got a little too close for comfort, the group ran back to the main road, after which they reportedly saw a police chopper approaching the area of the incident. It's not entirely clear who called the cops that day, but based on my research, this wasn't the first time the couple had harassed the public with their creepy masks and weapons. Earlier that week, they had terrorized a woman at Auckland's Domain Park, but left before the police were able to arrest them. When the cops arrived at the train station, Chris and his friends gave them the report, after which the Auckland Police Department uploaded a Facebook post where they urged the suspects to come forward and warned civilians to stay far away from the mass couple. They also cautioned that if they saw someone carrying what appeared to be a weapon, they had no way of knowing if the weapon was real or fake, and would be forced to approach the situation as if it were real. Shortly after that, the suspects reportedly came forward to talk to the cops throughout the investigation. The authorities didn't release a whole lot of information to the public about who these people were, whether their weapons were real or what their intentions were. But one thing we know for sure is that this wasn't just an innocent prank. In fact, when a lot of people online started accusing the students of staging a prank just to get attention, a spokesperson from the school came forward to clarify that the mass suspects had nothing to do with the institute. According to an article from Vice, a police spokesperson later confirmed that the weapons were fake. But I wasn't able to find any official confirmation of this. And to this day, not a lot of people know who the suspects were or why they were terrorizing the public for no reason. Whatever the case, it's a good thing Chris and his friends were able to get away before things took a turn for the worse.